Welcome to Young Adults Learning Evil, hosted by Nyrule. Young Adults Learning Evil is a gritty documentary podcast that explores the intersectionality of class, wealth, and race, and how it has played out over the past 400 years within a community. The podcast gives the world insight into how urban trauma affects a marginalized Black community inside one of America's first planned cities, New Haven, Connecticut. New Haven is also the home of one of the world's most prestigious and powerful institutions, Yale University. Subscribe to Young Adults Learning Evil on your favorite podcast platform. Here is your host, Nyrule.
Peace. I'm your host, Nyrule, and this is Young Adults Learning Evil. In this episode, we will be commemorating Black August. In this month, we commemorate the sacrifices of our political prisoners that have fought on the front lines to liberate Black people from the struggles that we've encountered in America. And to commemorate Black August, we are having a discussion about police reform in New Haven with the legendary New Haven activist, Barbara Fair. Born and raised in New Haven, Ms. Fair has been a longtime social justice activist and organizer in the city. She is the founder of the organization My Brother's Keeper and also a member of Stop Solitary CT, which aims to abolish solitary confinement in Connecticut state prisons. Enjoy this down-to-earth, candid conversation. Yeah, so just coming off a big victory.
Yes, I'm so excited. I'm still high. I am still high, even though we have a lot more work to do. You know, we made a crack in the door. Now we can ask to be invited in or kick it in, whatever. But we got the crack there.
The first question, what's your favorite thing about New Haven?
I don't know. I think it's just the people. It's where I was born and raised. My whole life I spent there, aside from, temporarily moving in and out of town. But my heart's always been in New Haven. I just love that community that we used to have, and I'm always longing to get that back.
Definitely. Do you mind going more into detail about how important this new Police Accountability Bill is and what's in it so people can understand more about it?
Okay, there's quite a bit of stuff in it. It's like about 70 pages, so there's a lot of stuff in there. I'm sure people are not aware. But if I can remember off the top of my head, one of the biggest things, and which was the most we got most opposition against, was qualified immunity, which allows, if a person has been treated in malicious or, just a real bad way, that they can now find some kind of justice through the civil litigation. And so that's one of the biggest things that, because police have been just doing all kinds of things, treating people any kind of way, disrespect, maiming people, killing people, all of this with impunity. And there's never been anything that people feel that they could do about it. So most people just kind of like normalize that kind of oppression. And it's just something that I never could. So one of the things this bill is going to do is now make police accountable for their egregious behavior towards citizens. It's going to require 5-year mental health assessments to make sure that officers are still mentally stable to perform their duties. For me, I think 5 years is too long to wait. 5 years with someone who's unstable, mentally unstable, and walking our communities with a gun is, for me, very dangerous. We don't wait 5 years to have physical examinations. So why would we wait 5 years for mental? But, it is what it is. That's what the bill is now. Hopefully they'll recognize that it needs to be more regular. It now tells police officers that they are mandated to report something that one of their coworkers may be doing as far as abusing people. And they can no longer just, keep the blue wall of silence up and not say anything. They now have a mandate that they have to intervene, act to stop it, and also report the abuse. Otherwise, they face prosecution themselves. But we also I'm saying we like I wrote the bill, but I just feel so much a part of it. But
I understand.
also in the bill is what they call whistleblower protection. So that now that we're mandating that officers must report abuse from other fellow officers, there has to be some protection for them, because we have recognized that, when you tell on another officer, that you end up being retaliated against. So we want to make sure that, those who really want to come forth, feel free to come forth. Because the reality is, all cops are not bad. I believe the majority are really, really good cops.
Mm-hmm.
And so we need to protect those good cops who really don't want any part of the abuse. But because of the retaliation and the blue wall of silence, they've been kind of quiet about what they're seeing and hearing. And so when people say good cops, I always feel like, well, good cops would not allow this kind of stuff to happen without coming forth and saying something. But I also understand what they face. And so now hopefully they'll feel like they have some kind of protection when they come forth to report what other officers are doing. One of the big things that you're not hearing that much in the news is that this also goes for correctional officers. They were also part of the bill. Many of them may not even be aware of it yet.
Oh.
But yes, they're going to be held accountable also. And so that's going to be huge in corrections, because they've done so much behind the scenes that no one would ever be aware of it. They're not out here in the public abusing, so people wouldn't know it unless someone from the inside tells you.
Mm-hmm.
So now they are going to be held accountable for what's going on. And as well, the officers who stand by and allow it to happen will also have to pay. So I can see some real consequences coming out of that, especially when we have a place like Northern Correctional, who the United Nations just cited in February, stating that the behavior that they have toward people in Northern facility, which is a supermax, it can be called torture.
Wow.
And it's because in the way that they treat them. So this has already came up. It came up just before the pandemic, so we didn't get to continue in our struggle to close down Northern. But this organization that I'm a part of, Stop Solitary Connecticut, that's one of our basic goals. Shut down Northern, stop the abuse, stop the torture of our citizens, because the long-term effects of what they're doing to people is sometimes some people just can't get past it. They can't recover from it.
Mm-hmm.
And so you see people like Khalif Broder, being put in solitary for a period of time. And when he came out, like he said, he smiled like everything was fine. He tried to be happy, but inside he was torn up. And then he ended up committing suicide. We know suicides happen inside of the Supermax in Connecticut and in some of the other prisons also. And so we're going to be more on top of some of that stuff now that they are included in this police accountability bill. We're also going to be looking at policing. It should be professional. They say they're professionals. We want to make sure that they're professionals by following national guidelines on how they should be behaving, what their profession should look like, and try to work toward being accredited. Because one of the things also in Connecticut, very few departments are accredited, and absolutely none of those in urban centers, New Haven, Bridgeport, Hartford, Waterbury, none of those are accredited.
Wow.
So we're looking for, if you say you're a profession, then you should be professional.
Standards.
Yes. And as a profession, say like doctors and lawyers, counselors, like I'm a clinical social worker, I had to go to school, be educated, take all these courses, get a degree. Beyond that degree, I had to be licensed by the public health.
Mm-hmm.
So that means they want to make sure, and you have to have, if you work for someone, they have to have insurance on you for any mistakes you may make. And if you work on your own, you have to have insurance.
That's true.
Doctors have to have insurance. Lawyers have to have insurance. I don't understand why police officers, they claim their profession, why they don't feel that they need a liability and some kind of protection against anything that they may do.
Especially if they say it's so dangerous.
Yes, they say it's dangerous. And the reality, policing is dangerous, but it's not only dangerous for the police officers. Police officers are not the only ones who are worried about going home. Our everyday citizen in urban centers, many of us are also feel dangered by having the police in our community.
Exactly.
And we also would like to come home too. I know I have 7 sons, and when they were growing up, and I still, even though, they're adults, I still want to see them come home to their children. So police are not the only one who want to go home at night. And we fail to talk about that.
Exactly. Yes. So
there's so many things in the bill, but like I said, I can't remember them all offhand, but maybe as we go on, I can think about more of them. But there's a lot of really, really good stuff in the bill. I don't think it should hurt anybody. Any good officer should not have anything to worry about, because it's really to protect us from the bad officers, the ones who think that they can treat us any kind of way and kill us with impunity. And it was so important because we've had in Connecticut alone 71 police shootings, and they've all been exonerated. There was only one that actually went to court, and that was in New Milford years ago. I don't know if you remember it, where the officer in New Milford had the suspect on the ground, face down. He had his foot boot print was found on the person's shirt.
Wow.
And he shot him in the back. And that's the only time that they've had one that actually was prosecuted, but he never went to jail. But I mean, at least we got that far. So with the old Police Accountability Bill that was passed a few years ago, they thought that a resolution for that is to have state's attorneys from other districts handle cases when a police shooting. For me, I thought that was kind of silly, but that's me, because I saw state prosecutors all working together, and they work with the police. So what difference does it make that you say, we'll take a New Haven police shooting and take it over to Waterbury and think you're going to get a different outcome?
It's exactly.
So we've tightened that up now. And that's another one of the things. We've tightened that up. Now, it will not be regular state's attorneys who will handle it. There's going to be a special independent inspector who will be looking at police shootings. Like for me, like I said, there's more things to be done. Hopefully, some of the things that I'd like to see happen can also happen. Because one of the things I'd like to see is not only that an independent inspector handle police shootings, but that they handle police cases. Because we've seen time and time again, police are getting arrested for all kinds of things, domestic violence, just all kind of criminal behavior. And yet, when they go to the state's attorney, whom they work with, they're always getting off. So we actually need an independent inspector to also look at those cases.
Those things are really important, especially the history of police brutality inside like the inner cities have been perpetuated because of that, Yes.
I mean, I myself was a victim. My kids have been victims. My daughter, a few years ago at a traffic stop, was pulled out of her car, thrown to the ground. She was in the car with her boyfriend. He couldn't do anything because they had a gun on him. So he had to watch them manhandle his girlfriend, and he couldn't do anything. And she was traumatized. She had bruises on her arms for months. Her daughter, of course, is traumatized by what happened to her mom. We never look at any of that stuff. A lot of the times when we talk about police brutality, we're focused on the people who were shot and killed. There are so many people who have been brutalized by police officers who didn't die, and no attention is given to the trauma that they continue to face. 3 years ago, I was on the green doing absolutely nothing, gave no cause for a police officer to bother me at all. And several police officers manhandled me, put me in cuffs, put me in the wagon, and I did absolutely nothing. Beyond the trauma that I had to face of having that done to me is the trauma that I know my daughter, one of my daughters and sons was there. They came running toward me, and I knew I had to stop them and get them in control, or it would have been bloodshed on the green that day. And so I just told them, I said, I'm okay. Don't give the police any reason to hurt you, because I know they would love to have done that. And so I think constantly about how they feel even to this day that they couldn't help their mom. But I'm glad they didn't. And I tell them, I'm glad that you listened to me, because I don't want to have the trauma or a traumatic memory of seeing one of my kids shot and killed on the green trying to protect me. And so 3 years later, I continue to be traumatized by that incident, but nobody talks about those. They talk about the people who were shot and killed. But, that brutality reaches so much further.
Yeah, like, and that's true. Because, like, how I was connecting with you earlier in regards to one of my friends who was active doing some activism for Fred James, the way he died, when someone close to you gets killed by a police officer, saying that creates like a lot of animosity in you because it's powerlessness. What could you do about it? You know what I'm saying?
Right. You can't do anything unless you risk. You most likely it won't be a risk. You could end up dead.
Exactly.
And how does that help anybody? When I one of the cases that really, really has stuck with me, and I just have a gut feeling. It's this elder. I don't know if you remember. I think it was in 2004.
Inside the towers over there by the hospital?
Yes. This young officer, he hadn't even been on the force 2 years. His last name was Rosa. I think he's probably still on the force because they never get rid of those people. They stay on the force for some reason. And my sister lived there, and she had told me, and I talked to some of the people in the building, and they said he was such an arrogant person, but he was getting ready to move into the building. And the elders had said, he was so arrogant. He treated them so disrespectfully. And on this occasion, he was getting on the elevator with a dog. And this elder man, Mac Lucky, said, "I'm afraid of dogs." And, with his arrogance, he decided he's going to stay on the elevator with the dog anyway. And so, according to the story, the doors closed, and within minutes, the doors opened again, and Lucky was on the floor dead. And the officers claimed Mr. Lucky lounged at him with a knife. Okay, later they found a knife. Well, at least they said they found a knife by Mr. Lucky's hand. But when they did fingerprints, there were no fingerprints. So, I mean, do we automatically believe that that's what happened because the officer said it? And so that's just another case of police not being held accountable for what they do, and they still work in our force. I mean, what kind of a message does that leave that officers can do these things and still be working on your force, and then you're supposed to trust and care about police officers?
Yeah, so his family's still living out there. He got kids, he got grandkids, and they know that was his fate.
I wonder about, I think about them from time to time, like, whatever happened, because I didn't hear about any of them coming forth, protests or anything. So I always wondered, like, what happened? Did he have family here, or maybe they lived somewhere else? I don't know, because that was another case just swept under the rug.
Yeah, one of many. But so this whole bill is bringing things one step further, so it doesn't keep on going the way it has been going. But there's a lot of damage that has been done already.
Right. And how do you rectify that? I mean, how do people heal from all this trauma that they've had to face year after year after year?
It's true.
So I don't know, because one of the things I find about us is, people are always saying, "Oh, how resilient we are as a people." Yes, we're resilient, thanks to our ancestors. But there's a difference in surviving something and actually healing from it. And I think we survive a lot, but I don't think a whole lot of healing goes on in that process.
Well, we can't thrive until after we heal. So we'll just keep on just enduring. We just put our head down and we're enduring. But until we heal from the past and really rectify what has happened to us, we're not going to be able to move on to the future. That's kind of one of the inspirations of my project is I'm putting everything into a whole lens. So I'm putting how the past affects the future, because what you're talking about as far as this whole police accountability bill, I got a whole episode that describes how, since the beginning of this colony, the different black codes that they created to keep black people oppressed, whether you were free or as a hostage. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And all these things had just been perpetuating. So what you're saying is a culmination of almost 400 years of police oppression of the black community in New Haven, especially. Yes. You know what I'm saying?
And that's why I tell people when I'm out there protesting, I'm not protesting George Floyd. I'm protesting 401 years of sanctioned by our government, legalized abuse and killings of our people. Because so many people, their protest right now is about George Floyd, seeing that video. I never saw the video, and I don't want to see it. I haven't watched the video since they choked Eric Garner to death. And I didn't realize the impact that would have on me watching it. I guess because I didn't think that they was going to show the whole episode on TV. And then by the time I seen it, it had so deeply impacted me. I said, I can't watch any more videos. So there's many, many videos I haven't watched. So I was in pain and anger and rage long before what happened to George Floyd. As a matter of fact, long before what happened to Eric Garner. I mean, some of my earliest is that 7-year-old Ayanna Stanley sleeping on her couch, innocent child, sleeping on her couch. Yeah. The police raid the place, throw in smoke bombs so they don't even know what they're shooting at, and just start shooting and killed the innocent 7-year-old laying on the couch. And no one was held accountable. This is the kind of stuff that you can't get past that rage. It's been with me so much longer before this happened with George Floyd. And so this victory for me is huge. But some people may think, oh, it's a little thing. This is huge because we're finally at least got our foot in the door and where we can make police accountable. Now, will that stop all these cops who think they can operate outside the law? No, because there's always going to be those attorneys who are going to work hard to free them and not even care, not even have the moral fortitude to think about, they took somebody's life. I shouldn't be trying to protect them. But you're always going to find those attorneys who will. And I think as long as those lives are brown lives, many people can take on that chore of trying to protect these officers and not think twice about it because it's not their lives.
That's true. They feel it's pushing the status quo. And like if you see like the climate right now, like the political climate, that's just like the law and order that the president is talking about.
Yes.
So they're pushing that same narrative, so they'll feel inspired to do so.
And you got to remember, when you know your history of policing in the first place in the South, it began as the slave patrols out there making sure that none of the Africans got away from the plantation. And they were given a badge and everything just like they are today. So that was all about maintaining white supremacy. If you look at today in 2020, that's all policing is about, maintaining white supremacy. So I always have a hard time understanding how our brown officers put that uniform and wear it so proudly unless they don't recognize that what you're doing is maintaining white supremacy. It's never about protecting brown lives. It's about protecting white lives and their property. Always has been. And until we change the culture of policing, I don't care what color face you put in that uniform, your job is to maintain white supremacy. And I think maybe if more of them thought about that, they might say, why am I proudly hurting my own people? But that's part of the social conditioning that America put on us 401 years ago. And sadly, many of us are still colonized with that mindset.
Want to protect the dominant culture, even through injustice.
Yes.
So they're feeling that like that's the pattern of behavior and accepting how they view our community. So they're taking that whole narrative on.
Yes.
So even when they look at black on black crime, they're trying to make it a solely a personal accountability issue when in fact it's a societal issue.
And first of all, I don't know where black on black crime came from anyway, because black people, because you're in proximity of other black people, kill black people. Just like white people in proximity of other white people, Italians, Irish, Jewish, they kill their own too. So, but we never say white on white crime, even though we've had all these mass shootings with white people slaughtering tons of people. And yet you've never heard anyone say white on white crime. I don't know why we adapt to all of these things that white America feeds to us without thinking, giving any kind of thought. Yeah. So why are we saying black on black crime? What about when white people killing each other? How come that's not white on white crime? We don't ask any questions. And along that trail is another, this is just a part of another journey that I'm on, how we just accept what white America tells us. First, they called us, we went from, the niggers and coons and all that. But then they decided we were going to be colored. And then later they decided, nah, they're going to be Negroes. And then they're going to be Afro-Americans. Nah, maybe African-American. And then they decide, no, they're going to be Black. And we just adopt all that. Why? Do we get to tell them who they're going to be?
Exactly.
We have a lot of stuff that we don't even question. We are still bound by that white social conditioning. We don't even question it. Like, my skin is brown. Our skin is brown. Why are we calling ourselves Black? It works for white America, because if we say we're Black and then other brown people say they're brown, or they're all these other wherever they live at, whatever island they're, we're all this, we're not all African people, then that helps them with this where they call themselves the majority. You're not the world majority. Matter of fact, a lot of people came to this country and decided to be white because they seen the privilege that whiteness gave them. Exactly. But the dominant people around this globe are people of color, brown people, all different shades.
That's the fear, and that's what drives them to behave in the way that they do sometimes. Mm-hmm. So, and like, especially with these policies in America, you know, they were all in fear of like this, the 2040, when the majority of the people will be Black and brown people, mm-hmm. and the white people will no longer be the political majority. Mm-hmm. And that's what drives the anxiety of the political right wing. And all these different policies of xenophobia are driving that, because that's a fear based off of them, their population not being a dominant culture anymore. But right. we had to endure that and go through that, but it's unacceptable for them. So you right. see the double standards that they have.
Mm-hmm. It's just like you look at with this police accountability bill and how the police, just losing that privilege, are going absolutely crazy. Like, did you not hear that this is about making you accountable? The bad cops, not the good cops. Cops talking about, they're going to drive cops out of Connecticut. They're not going to want to be here. People are not going to want to sign up for the police department. Why? Because you have an accountability placed on your profession, which you should. All I can say to that is bye, if that's what it means. But they're going crazy, just losing that privilege.
Yeah, the police chief in New Haven said it was driven by hate. He said hate can't drive out hate. Oh, that's what he said.
And I just was so saddened by that, because he had talked about publicly, you know, they did the kneeling to the community to show that they're, I guess, gonna respect the community. That's what I thought the message was. And then there was a lot of conversations around how to make the police department more transparent and how do we build relationships. And then to turn around and say that this bill was driven from hate. No, it was driven from the desperation from people that are getting abused and dying, pleading somebody do something to help save our lives. That's what it's about. It has nothing to do with hate. Now, if you had been at the protests that they had in Hartford, now that I think was generated by hate. You know, the way they were out in the street chanting "Back the Blue," putting their fists in the air and being very aggressive and hostile. The environment, the whole air you could feel was them against us. It was like, no, if it was any hate driven, it was on the other side. And there was actually police chiefs, former and current, who actually supported the bill because they wanted to see a community that respected their police force, and knowing that the only way they're going to get that is when they change the culture of policing. They actually wanted it. And then to have him say it was made in haste, they started working on a police accountability a couple of years ago. That was never complete. So all they're doing is strengthening what they had in place. So it's been years in the making. There was no haste about this at all. They had a 12-hour listening session, which is if we didn't have COVID, it would have been a 12-hour public hearing where people could have came in. I was on that listening. There were plenty police officers and chiefs from all across the state who had plenty to say. before this bill was put into place. There was a lot of people from the community, different organizations. So it wasn't no hasty thing that nobody had input. Anybody who wanted input had the opportunity. They also had where you could send in public testimony if you didn't want to get on the listening thing. And people had the opportunity to do that. So I don't see why they say that people were locked out of the process. No one was locked out of the process unless they locked themselves out. I wanted this bill very, very badly. So I did everything that I thought I had to do to make sure I was heard. I sent in a testimony. After I was under 12-hour listening. After that, I sent in another testimony to respond to some of the things that went on in the session. I went to support Gary and Robin, who I think are some fierce warriors up in Hartford, and I just have so much respect for them. I made sure that every time they was up in Hartford working, that myself and a bunch of other people came out to support them, let them know this burden is not yours to carry. You're trying to help us. We're all going to be here to support you. I was up there till midnight when the House was voting on it. And then when it went to the Senate, I said, I'm not going to leave until it's passed. And so I was up there to 4:00 in the morning till it passed. And I was dedicated, committed to that because I wanted Robin and Gary to walk out those doors and know that they were supported every step of the way. And I wanted to see their faces when they got their victory because I knew they were going to get it. They've been through so much to get this bill, so much pain, frustration. You hear a lot of privilege and racism, all of that. People who they thought was going to support them that didn't. It's been a journey, believe me. And I've been on that journey with them. So I know they went through a lot. And if people understood that when you want your legislators to do something to represent you, you have to be there too. You can't just say, I want this and then go sit down and wait for it to happen. So I just applaud the strength of Robin and Gary. Anybody who knows what they went through should applaud them every day.
Yeah, they put some work in. We do appreciate them for the community. Yes. All right, so now I want to get a little bit of New Haven history from you. So growing up in the 60s and 70s, were you familiar with like the Hill Parents Association and Fred Harris?
Oh, yeah. Fred Harris, I actually lived next door to Fred Harris on Button Street.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So
So I knew them well.
Okay. So he's like inspired activism, and he saw how urban renewal was destroying the Black community at its earliest beginnings. Because now today they have papers and books talking about how that happened, but he saw it and he saw the vision. And it's crazy how like the opposition to his movement that he had in the Hill came from like downtown, from the mayor's office and the police department.
Pretty much like today. The people who are trying to change things, they come up against so much opposition. But I remember Fred Harris, because he was a neighbor, so we did everything together, have cookouts and all that stuff together. And from time to time, I think about him because I wonder where he's at. Last I heard, I think it was California, but I wonder, is he still involved in this kind of stuff? Because he influenced me, him and some of the other people. Ronnie Johnson's another one, his girl, they influenced me during the Panther era. And that's they're behind what I do today. And so I really wonder what they're doing now, and are they still in it? Because once I got in it, I was driven, and there is nothing I can seem to get out of. So I imagine if they're still alive and still around, that they're probably doing the same.
All right. So do you remember like the riots in 1967 inside the Hill when was it the store owner killed the Puerto Rican kid?
Oh yeah. Yes. I couldn't remember what started it because I was young then, but I remember the riots. I couldn't remember what started it. That memory's lost. But I do remember the riots. I remember there was a popular store that everybody went to, Congress Public Market on Congress Avenue. Everybody went there. Everybody shopped there. And I remember being like walking down the street and then seeing people, looting the store and stuff like that. And it was scary, especially when they brought all the riot gear police in. And then they had a curfew. I remember boarding up the stores downtown. when they had Bobby Seale's case was brought to New Haven trial. I remember boarding up the stores.
Mm-hmm.
I used to work downtown, and they told all of us to leave. They were leaving work, closing down shop and everything early. So it was quite a time. It was quite a time during the Panthers. But I have to tell you, I had so much respect for them.
All right, so the death of John Huggins, right? So did you go to John Huggins' funeral, or do you know anybody that went to John Huggins' funeral at St. Luke's Church?
No, I don't know if anybody who went. I know I didn't go.
Okay, all right. So did you see a change in the city, like ever since that happened? Like you just talking about it, but like how did the city change after that funeral and the Panther movement started really getting invigorated in the city?
I think it has its ups and its downs. Because for me, I had so much respect for them. Because for once, I thought I found that our people, African people, were being respected, even though it might have been violence going on at the time. I don't know. Maybe that made a difference. Like you see now, to tell the truth, on the streets, people are against the violence, but it just seems like that's all America hears and understands. So I seen things starting to go better. But then they started sliding down again. And, this thing where they came and divided up all the neighborhoods, which leads to the problem that we have today with our young people who's repping what hood. When I was growing up, it was one hood. It was New Haven, one city. We could go everywhere, all across town, partying everywhere. There was no such thing as we're from the Hill or we're from the Dwight. There was none of that. We were New Haven. And the government played a role in dividing this city up.
So you saw the transition from that into, because I was born in 82, so I basically grew up into that. That's all I know, and that's all I knew. So I don't know what it was before that. Before that,
it was what we really call community, and that's what I said. That's what I miss, because we were just one city back then. You didn't see all the violence and stuff that you see now. People pretty much got along with each other. You knew your neighbors. It wasn't all transitional. People owned property. There was a lot of African Americans who owned property around the city. Newhartville was practically all African American. My uncle owned a Cleaners in the Hill. My sister owned a store. So it was a lot of Black pride and a lot of Black ownership. But now look at it; it's all gone, and for me, it's all intentional. Like City Hall will have a plan 20 and 30 years ahead, plan out what they want to see happen, and they make all little small moves that we don't even notice. And by the time we look up and see what their plan was, we're etched out of the city.
I heard that Yale has a 100-year plan. They have a 100-year plan for the city.
They probably do. I'm waiting for this city to become New Haven inside of Yale. That's what I'm waiting for.
But the crazy thing about it is that the person that found New Haven is the brainchild behind Yale. So John Davenport had the plans for Yale, and he put the money together for Yale when he found the city. So the city and Yale are always going to be intertwined. And even like Elihu Yale, his step-grandfather was Theophilus Eaton. So everything is all intertwined within the city and the Yale. So it's inseparable. It might as well be called Yale if you want it.
Yeah, and it's all intentional. And I think eventually it will be. It'll be New Haven inside of Yale.
Yep, but they only use the New Haven part just for their labor.
Yeah,
they don't use it to empower us. So the relationship is definitely, and that's where all the inequality lies at. That relationship, because there's many things that could have happened within this history that we had that could have put the Black community in a whole different space than we are now.
Definitely.
So the fact that we're here now in 2020 is by the design of what they created.
Yes. It's all by design. Everything that you see, the violence, all of this stuff that's going on is by design. There's nothing that was unintentional.
And Yale has all these different studies and papers, so they know all the different risk factors, all the different things that can change these outcomes. But it's like trying to get these things done. Everybody acting like they don't know what to do.
They know what they're doing.
So
you look around the city, they know exactly what they're doing. We're the ones who are clueless.
They're buying property. So if they just keep on acquiring more property and not paying any taxes, and that's just going more into their endowment.
Mm-hmm. And then you see certain landlords just buying up what Yale don't own, they buying up. Mm-hmm. And charging these enormous rents and these dilapidated buildings.
So, and that's why they try to keep us from ownership, because they know that's
power.
We'll probably, we'll empower. Yeah, the empowerment that will come from it, you know what I'm saying, is a threat to their power structure. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And that's always been the tradition of the city,
I know one of the things I was talking about, like Freddie Harris and how he inspired me and the Black Panther movement. And another person who really inspires me to continue the work that I do is Maya Angelou, rest in peace. I remember something that she said, and it always rings in my ear. She said, in doing what we do, the work that we do, she said, we will face many defeats, but we can never feel defeated. And that's what I think. I know that's what keeps me going. Whenever we get defeated on something that we're trying to get, mm-hmm. it just tells me I can't accept defeat. I'm going to keep on pushing. And see, one of the things that's really major for me to keep pushing in my lifetime is to see Northern Supermax shut down for all the harm that it has done to our people and continue to do to our people. And when you look at statistics of who's in there, it's over 88% brown people. That's who are facing all these torturous conditions.
Wow.
And what do you think when you do that to somebody? What do you think they're going to be like when they come home? And they do. They come back to our community. Many of them have been on so many psych meds, and psych meds have so many side effects. I'm not surprised at the violence, because a lot of people probably have no clue what being incarcerated does to a person in itself, let alone being in the Supermax. Just the degrading, inhumane process of being put in a cage like an animal for years. People don't, and then have these men who have no respect for you and don't care anything about you and love the opportunity to be able to dehumanize and degrade you. They're in power. And so that's why it was important for me that corrections are also included in this bill for accountability, because they need to be held accountable for what they're doing also.
Mm-hmm. So is that where a lot of the areas where a lot of the opposition to the bill came from?
No, it primarily came from the police. I guess because they called it Police Accountability Bill, that police probably, they're well aware it's about them. But I don't think corrections is really aware that this includes them. I don't know. But they will find out. Yeah, the correction officer is not going to be able to sit by and let other officers abuse and any of that anymore either. And we're going to be looking at their mental health too. And I think especially the people working in Northern, anybody who can stand by and watch that kind of stuff happen to another human being, I would be a little worried about their mental stability.
Mm. Well, so if someone's witnessing that, would they be called like a bystander? Would it be like reported to tell now?
Oh, yeah. They're included in that. Yes, they're mandated to intervene, first of all, and to report on it. And if they don't, they face prosecution.
Okay.
For not doing so.
See, yeah. See, that's the good thing. Now you can check them for it, because before you couldn't really check them for their behavior. Now you can check them for it. Yeah. I can see why they mad about that.
I wish I could remember all the things that's in the bill, because there's so much in there. Oh, another thing I was just thinking about this in the bill. You know how when you get, I don't know if you was ever stopped in a car and you had other people in the car in New Haven. Well, what they do, the police will want everybody's ID that's in the car. Well, you can no longer do that once this goes into effect. If you're stopping the car for traffic, then you ask for your registration and your license, make sure they have that, and get the ID of the person driving. You don't need to know who else is in the car. And you can't, like an officer will ask you, I don't even know if they bother to ask, because some of them operate outside the law. But if they would have asked you, can I search your car? And they'll ask it in a nice way. So of course the person will say, oh yeah, go ahead. But they don't have a right to do that unless there's probable cause. And so that's another thing that's in the bill. They cannot just search people's car if they don't have any probable cause for doing so. And what we're going to have to do is get some kind of slip that the driver is going to have to sign saying, yes, I consented to a search. Otherwise, of course, they'll claim that the driver said yes, that they could search. So, there's a lot of things we're trying to get a grip on. We're not going to be able to stop everything because, like I said, we have police officers who are liars. They'll claim they was probable cause, or they'll claim somebody gave them permission. But I think we can make a pretty good dent in the bill by doing this as opposed to not doing anything. So that's just two more things that came up too that people should be aware of.
Yeah, and that's as far as the part we're talking about when you're getting pulled over, because a lot of times police play a game of numbers. So if they know 1 out of 4 black men have been incarcerated and you got 4 black men in the car, they're like, I know one of them got a warrant, so let me go check all their IDs and see what's going on with it.
Yep, they'll do that. And the fact that they know that same stat that 1 in 4 have been in prison and they probably might be on parole or probation. That might be somebody that they don't particularly like. They can get you violated just from that. So a lot of stuff they're not going to be able to continue doing, because not only is this going to affect the police and corrections, this is just the beginning, but we're also going to be looking at the entire system, how corrupt the entire system is, and all the racial injustice that goes on in probation and parole. Yeah. So it's going to be all. I'm looking at prosecutors. We already got a bill out there, legislation that's starting to look at prosecutors, how they can be more transparent. Like, how can they explain a white person doing the same thing that an African American or Latino do, yet they get to get probation and we get to go to jail. So that's going to be looked at too. And hopefully they'll start looking at the war on drugs and how that has opened the door for so much of this corruption and brutality. I mean, that's why Breonna Taylor's dead. That's why little 7-year-old Yana is dead, because of drug raids. And we need to end the war on drugs. We know why it was put together. Nixon put it together because back then he thought the problem with America are black people and war resistors. You can Google it up. It's history, known history for anybody who wants to check it out. It's right there in black and white. And he said, what we have to do is devise a system that takes care of that. And that is black people and war resistors. And they came up with the war on drugs. And we know the war on drugs is selectively enforced in our communities, because we know white people use drugs just like anybody else. But if you see who's filling the prisons, many with life sentences, it's black and brown people. And so, and then you look at how when the crack cocaine era was out here, that filled up a lot of the prisons too, because it was not a public health issue. It was a crime. And now that so many white people are hooked on opioids, now we've decided it's a public health. Addiction is a public health issue. And so, instead of sending them to jail, we're going to produce more and more treatment centers and, treat this with compassion. It's just a difference. And that's that subtle racism that, we know what's behind it, but if nobody's talking about it. But, that's the difference in how things get handled. But you know what? It's going to take us who are most impacted to be the ones to open our mouth and say something. Instead of normalizing our oppression, it's time for us all to come together, speak up, and say, this is what we want our representatives to do, from local to national. We need them to stop this war on us, because that's all it is, a war on us, where it steals our kids, it steals our dads out of the home, steals the moms, breaks up our families, and the white families stay intact and get addiction treatment. We're going to have to say something, because if somebody has their foot on my neck and I don't say nothing, what's going to make them get off me? We're the ones who are going to have to say, you need to end this, because it's only hurting our people and it's racially biased, clearly racially biased. That's on us to say something.
And we can't, like you was talking about, we can't get into the healing part. We can't heal until we address these things. So we're going to keep on just trying to put our head down and keep on we're just going to keep on pushing forward without addressing these really dynamic and impactful things that are hurting our community, that we're not going to be able to move forward.
We can't, because one thing about trauma, it changes your DNA. So your DNA is changed by the time you bring another child into the world, that changed DNA gets passed down to the next generation.
Mm-hmm.
So now that child is traumatized and don't even realize that they're traumatized and don't even know where it comes from. They've inherited that through your DNA. And so if we continue to just sit around and just try to survive everything, survive this, survive that, and never demand we need to stop it so that we can begin to heal. Malcolm X said it's best. You can't put a knife in my back 10 inches and pull it out 3 or 4 and say, oh, we've made progress. No. The progress is when you're starting to heal. The healing doesn't happen until the knife's out your back. That's when you can heal. And we still got the knife in our back. And we still got the knee on our neck. And we're still trying to just make that all normal and keep going every day and never getting any treatment for it. And that's why mental health treatment is so important, because we have to heal.
That's true. So true. Yeah, definitely. So, now, as far as what is your vision for the future of the Black community in New Haven?
I'm always, like I said, I miss the community, the village mentality of New Haven. I'm always hoping that we can get that back. I would love for my grandchildren to experience that kind of love and unity. So, I'm hoping that that's going to happen. Hopefully when the Q House come back up, it'll be the cornerstone of our community as it was in the past. Hopefully Yale won't take over that. And hopefully, our people continue to be educated and realize that we have some work to do. Like, this bill is a beginning, but we have a lot of work to do. And we can't depend on Robin and Gary and, a few activists to do all the work. This is work for all of us, our kids, our kids' kids. This is our future. And so that's what we have to start standing up to all of these expensive lofts that are just coming in the community and pushing us out in the woods somewhere. We have to stand up and say something.
That's true. That's true.
That's my hope and vision, that we will finally overcome the conditioning that has kept us bound and realize that together we can change everything that's going on in our community, and our families can thrive again.
Yes.
And we need to fight for our reparations. And I would say the first reparation, our kids should be able to go to college free. I mean, we have paid. We should not have to pay to go to school too. So that would be one of my top reparations. And there would be housing for people. We wouldn't have so many of our people homeless on the streets because the expensive lofts are moving in, and that's pushing us out that we can't afford to live here anymore.
Yeah. Yes, the Black community needs to have a sense of ownership in the city,
Yes, we must take back our community.
So we need to be like, this is ours, and we're going to take control, and we're going to make demands, because things are due, because we have been given less on purpose, and it has to end now in order for us to move forward.
That's right. And we have to stop asking. We've been asking for too long now. It's time to demand.
That's right.
It's time to demand. And I like the attitude that Gary and Robin went in with this bill, that they've been asking and trying to get along and compromise. And they said this time, all or nothing, no compromises. And they stood with it. And I was willing for them. I was willing for them to fail and end up with nothing, rather than see it get compromised down yet again to nothing helps our community. I mean, I can never have enough respect for them, that they stood their ground and they said, all or nothing, and we got it.
That's a great victory, and like I said, definitely appreciate your activism and your work and your passion. You know what I'm saying? That's definitely inspirational to the next generation of activists that are in the city and in the country, because like you said, you're just following the activists from the early 50s and 60s that inspired you. So what you do is inspire people, and that passes the torch on, because the work is a lot of work to be done, like you said, and if we don't have a transmission of knowledge from generation to generation, we're not going to know what is needed, because we don't know what we don't have. So it's good to have these type of dialogues, so we can make sure that these things keep on going along and that the torch doesn't drop anywhere.
Yeah, and on that note, we have to make sure, because this thing about younger people saying, I'm not my ancestor. Come on now. That's so disrespectful because we're standing here today. I know, I appreciate, I wouldn't be anywhere without my ancestors. So no, we gotta give our ancestors respect. You may want to do it differently, but don't say I'm not them, because you are a part of them. You're standing on their shoulders to be able to stand there
And say that
boldly and say what you want to do. And first of all, when you say it, you obviously don't know the history, because our ancestors did not stand around and just allow things to happen to them. They fought and they fought and they fought. And that's why we're not on plantations right now. So that's one thing I'd like to leave with this younger generation. Don't fall for that okie dokie, I'm not my ancestor. You're a product of your ancestor to be able to stand boldly and fight back.
Indeed. So yeah, thank you, Miss Barbara. I appreciate it. So and
thank you for inviting me.
No problem.
It's been nice.
Yeah. So like I said, this platform is for the city, and like I said, you are an integral part of, as far as the activism and like the voice of it, And I know some people only like to have selective parts of your voice, but like I said, you like the heart of the city. So I want to make sure that I get you a part of this project so that people can hear your voice like loud and clear. And
one day they'll appreciate me too.
Well, now
you know what I find that about things. People hate you when you're alive, but they love you when you're dead.
But I'm gonna give you your flowers today, though, for real. Because like I said, this is a big monumental thing. Like as far as historically, like I see the history of it. So like I wanted to really like say that that's making an impact. And like you said, it's just a start, but making them accountable and understand like you gotta respect our community. So
yes, we got to learn how to work together, because Robin and Gary and those up there working for us, they need all of us to come together with the power to make them move everything that we need to move in this city, in this state.
Thank you for listening to Young Adults Learning Evil. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. Visit our Patreon page and learn how you can support and stay in tune with the movement. Till next time, peace.